Hello, Australia, and welcome to the BAP. It is, I believe, the 25th of June. I don't have my notes written down in front of me as I would normally do, but let's go with that. 25th of June, we are broadcasting from the leather-bound BAP room. My name is Franco. Joining me, as per normal, is Jason and Dean. Gentlemen.
Jason being a leather-clad daddy today.
Yeah. The BAP has had minor upgrades in as much as the presenters now have chairs worthy of their stature in this show.
Pretty good.
I'm liking these chairs.
I mean, for a purely audio format, we can't express how awesome these chairs are, but they're pretty nice. I feel a little bit like we're no longer the progressive bubble. We're sitting here like a trio of fat cats.
it's pretty bougie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, we are five white gentlemen in mainstream professional jobs. We were never that progressive, were we?
Not only that, he's inflated us to 5.
Yeah.
We're 5 white gentlemen.
Between us.
Did I say 5?
You did. We obviously...
That's our privilege.
Well, that's including Gary and Errol.
I think
the
he's calling
interns.
us fat, Jason.
Certain amount of truth there.
He's like, you two fat fuckers.
Jason, you were about to launch into a diatribe where I stopped you because I felt since I was prepared this week, we could give the audience, the listening audience, of which I'm led to believe there are actual active listeners, which I will check. But
There was one last week who claimed that there were also 11 at the same time that she was watching. So
Listening.
Well,
This
in
is
real
a-
time.
There's some video there as well, but
Is there video?
well, there's the
Oh, it's still
static
image. I don't think that counts.
Okay,
So
but
Jason, tell us about Paul Rubin.
Dave Rubin.
Dave Rubin.
No, but
So-
tell us about Paul, his brother.
So I think we talked about Dave Rubin a little bit last week as well. To me, he's a person who's been labelled as a bit of an alt-right.
We certainly talked about him maybe before the
Commentator.
show. I was
Right.
lamenting a Facebook argument I'd got
So
into.
he's a former TYT journalist, and you can't see me, but I'm using air quotes.
He does strike me as someone that used the vehicle that was the Young Turks
Well, some
to
people
then launch himself.
Yeah, some people also pointed out that he once called himself a comic, which no one whoever saw him live really classed him as a comic either. But he's found himself a nice little niche since the Young Turks getting out that white man angst, and some of the MRA type Sam Harris disciples and the Islamophobic kind of groups, and he's found this nice little niche where he does reports. He put Milo Yiannopoulos on his show and those kind of characters, but he also does some.
I have a soft spot for Milo, not his
I know
politics,
you do, but
he is very funny. He's a funny troll.
He got further than his entertainment value should have allowed him. Really,
He got fired for it.
eventually, but he got a lot further than he probably should have. So Dave Rubin gives a nice platform to these kinds of people, but in his defence, he also gave it to Yanis Varoufakis, the Greek economics minister.
Yep.
Varoufakis. He just wants me to say it again. And but basically, he's tuning into this white man angst that's out there and providing them a nice platform, and he's apparently churning a decent earning out of it.
Bearing in mind, Joe Rogan's had all these people you're listening on as well.
Yeah, Joe Rogan's got
Maybe
a little
not
bit more
Varoufakis.
professionalism, and also I don't know, a bit more of a
stoned.
valid opinion as well. Whereas Dave Rubin's actually
Is
quite
an
stupid.
opinion ever invalid?
Well, Dave Rubin's the guy who thought that Jesus was a contemporary of Muslims, and he probably got on well with Muslims. So
I mean, he did, but they weren't Muslims at the time.
no, they most definitely weren't Muslims at the time. My other favourite podcast, Majority Report, have been trying to get him on to interview him because he's one of these libertarian types. So he's very much a free speech warrior.
Yep. He identifies as a classical
Liberal, but I don't think he actually knows what classical liberalism is. It's kind of a thing that it's actually a defined thing, and I don't think he really knows what it is. Anyway, so the Majority Report have either been trying to get one of their people on his show or get him on their show, because he's not very picky about who he puts on his show. You can see that by the back catalogue, and he'd been dodging me. Absolutely no comment, no sort of response from him up until the point where Majority Report did a bit of a video talking about his background and the kind of guests he has and what his politics are like. And the video may have had something similar to calling him stupid in the title. And suddenly Dave Rubin piped up and said, "No, I won't be going on your show because I could see you just put a video calling me stupid on it, and I'll no longer be interacting with you." Well, which made no difference because he'd been avoiding
interacting to
interaction.
start with, yeah.
That's right. And that's why the video disappeared, because I actually posted it on our Facebook page and then it disappeared.
So the Majority Report took it down?
The Majority Report took it down because then Sam Cedar was attempting to mollify him enough to maybe have some kind of dialogue, but I don't know if that's going to go forward yet. There's possibly some talk that Michael Brooks might actually...
Because I did try and watch this, and I even commented on our Facebook page that no idea what the content... I thought maybe YouTube took it down.
No, it was voluntarily by Sam Cedar, because, I don't know, he thought maybe they could still get Dave Rubin to interact in some way, but apart from that...
I did have the opportunity to see a little bit of it. To be honest, I got a bit bored of it pretty quickly into it, so you didn't really miss that much.
From the title, I assume he was saying that Martin Luther King and JFK would be conservatives today.
Specifically Martin Luther King. I could believe that JFK could be one of those centrist conservatives, yeah, but MLK most certainly probably not. I mean, Dave Rubin's other thing is, because he's a libertarian, he's a bit of a hardcore libertarian, he would deny the civil rights. So he says black people should just vote with their feet. But he's kind of ignoring the fact that back in the civil rights era, they didn't have that kind of option. He thinks everyone with access to the internet...
They still don't today.
I
mean, if you're in a small town America with one sort of store and they don't want to serve gay people and you're gay...
You're shit out of luck.
You are shit out of food.
Well, you're maybe fortunate enough to have the internet, but let's face it, Uber Eats doesn't go everywhere yet, does it? So...
You know, with these historical
just those fat cats in their bourgeoisie apartments.
When you say, you know, I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here, but I mean, even that comparison may be flawed. I mean, those men they're more a man of their time. They may have been nobody in this time.
That's right. I mean, back then, things were socially more conservative. The Overton window, as they call it, was a lot more to the right, I guess. And things have moved on a long way. But to say that MLK would be... This is the guy who spoke out against war and solidarity with brothers around the world and all that kind of thing. This is not the guy that's going to be an actual conservative nowadays. And certainly he was very much in favour of civil rights, which is something Dave Rubin isn't.
Yeah, he was fortunate enough to be born a white man. I mean, I know he's gay, but he's a rich white man.
This is another thing that Dave Rubin brought up. He was saying one of the reasons that so many... And he was, I don't know where he was what he was basing his facts on, but so many gay people are leaving the left, because he likes to refer to the left a lot. We're leaving the left was because the regressive kind of left politics that are going on now. But I'm kind of thinking that as being gay becomes less existential in the US, gay people are free to embrace their inner douchebag just like everyone else has. You know what I mean? They're going to vote. Yeah,
once their interests have been served.
There's always been log cabin...
Their second tier of interest is going to be what they're voting on, which may not align with the political left.
And there's always been log cabin Republicans who are gay and very specifically still Republican, even in a party that, you know, very much hates.
What's the log cabin refer to?
I'm not sure. You can find out if you like. They were just called log cabin Republicans. It may have something to do with... still, you know, basically in the closet or something like that, back in a log cabin.
There's also a lot of studies that show minority groups are more than happy to join with the majority when it comes to denigrating another minority.
Yeah.
So this is not unique to the gay community necessarily of joining the majority in denigrating another minority community.
Let's not validate Dave Rubin's idea of saying that the gays are abandoning the left. It was... Obviously, there's some that will as their other priorities come forward.
Well, Dave.
Yeah, exactly.
The list goes... Well, it doesn't, as far as I'm aware, but I'm sure there are others.
It's a sign of
ignorance
Lindsey Graham
to suggest that the gay community acts and thinks as a unique, as a singular entity.
Bearing in mind, Dave Rubin does sort of group all Muslims together as well.
He groups Muslims together that way.
He's big on grouping social.
And he also...
He likes a bit of stereotype.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, yes, he does. As a gay man, he loves the stereotype.
Anyway, so that was a little background behind the posting that went on our Facebook and why it
didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. I mainly put it there because I was hoping that... Didn't you say you had a friend who was a bit of a Dave Rubin
I have a
fan?
friend who's a
and I was really hoping he might see it. And
he probably would have. He would have probably seen me
stayed up long,
say, where's the content? It's gone.
Yeah. Oh, well.
I always find it hard to know whether it's appropriate to join in on Facebook threads. Where
I just leap in.
Yeah. I don't know what the etiquette is when... If you're not in the direct themey, the thread... group per se, do you jump in and throw in some, bombs?
Franco, this is the internet.
Yeah, I mean, if you make a public post on a public forum and someone comments, That's on you.
Free for
You
all.
made the code. You made the post. And if you don't like it, you can block them, but then it probably shows your argument's not exactly sound.
That was like someone posting something fairly banal on Twitter, and someone made a comment about it and critiqued it, and they said, "This is something I posted. You don't have the right to criticize that." And then I chimed in and said, "Do you realize you're on Twitter? It's all public. This is what it's about." You're sure you can mute them if you like after that, but
Yeah.
don't put it up there.
I had a Facebook friend that posted a news article where it was a conservative politician making a fool of himself, and one of his right-leaning friends popped into the comment thread, and rather than attacking the article with some substance, just went on that standard sort of diatribe of, "You naive lefties don't know what this, that, the other."
Yeah. I lost I remember back, this was probably
And it
about...
actually denigrated, because then my friend commented back, that's a bit harsh for amongst friends. And in the end, it ended in one person defriending the other.
Oh, wow. Not even a respectful agree to disagree.
No.
Because if one thing I have learned from listening to Dave Rubin is that the right are big on agreeing to disagree.
Yeah, except if suddenly someone calls him far right and then he decides he's going to sue them for libel. He's not really a free speech advocate if someone on the left actually starts criticising him and says, "Hey, you keep calling yourself a centrist. I do not think you know what that means."
From watching a lot of Dave Rubin videos, one of the other things I've learned is that he's okay with harsh criticism as long as it is fair and accurate. So that was obviously not fair or not accurate, or both. But he seems like a reasonable guy. I'm being very sarcastic now.
Yes.
But
my understanding is not necessarily... I like to throw out just people of the right and conservative areas, but I'm sure in general, people of strong opinions enjoy freedom of speech, asterisk mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, though...
When I'm condemning others' freedom of speech, then it's okay, but you can't impinge on mine. But mine is good. Mine is for the majority.
Yeah, I also remember a friend of mine who was one of those buy silver kind of advocates, and he was kind of buying silver on behalf of people. He was using it as a business model.
Right.
He was using Facebook to essentially to advertise this, and he went off on a buy silver. The whole, this what is it? The kind of currencies that are available, and silver's obviously going to survive whatever downfall is going to happen. Blah blah blah. I launched in and critiqued this a little bit on his page, and he just went at me and then banned me and unfriended me. And I went, "Oh, okay, fair enough."
Wow, he's that fragile.
Well, we weren't close friends.
No, I know, but even still, at the end of the day...
No, he saw me as threatening his business model by saying anything against it. So he was looking at Facebook as an advertising
Wouldn't
medium.
he be better off knowing what people are thinking about his business model? And then being
I don't
able
know.
to
I don't
build
think he wants his marks
an
to know
argument?
what people are thinking about his business model.
Okay.
I don't think he wants his marks to know that.
So you're basically implying he was a con man. Some
Oh,
sort of
no, I'll say it.
silver-tongued con man.
I'll say it out now. He was a bit of a con man.
Yeah, right. Fair enough.
Anyway,
Now, we've sort of launched straight into
We've
pre-show
skipped
banter.
Skip the douchebag filter entirely.
Well, technically, no. We've just made live pre-show banter.
Dave Rubin is a douchebag. Let's get that straight.
So that leads straight
It's
in-
interesting, though, because he's one of those guys that I feel... I'm going to keep Ruben bashing for a little while.
Go for it.
He's one of those guys I feel obviously has some reasonably intelligent friends who say things that he latches onto and then tries to explain but does a poor job of it.
He has some skills himself as a broadcaster. So he knows
no
how
doubt.
to interview.
Yeah.
And he's a broadcaster. He knows, he's got those skills. He's not terribly bright himself, but he does get some reasonably intelligent people on, and he's definitely got... I don't know, there's a lot of people with a vested interest in seeing that kind of business model work that will prop him up and back him up. So,
Well, he seems to be doing well for himself.
his Patreon gets $30,000 a month.
Yeah.
That's not to be sneezed at, is it? It's
No,
fairly extensive.
That's pretty good.
There's a lot of white anger out there, Dean, and they're willing to pay.
Well, I mean, some of that's just coming from YouTube, right? From his subscribers.
No, that's his Patreon. So
I
I don't know
he'd
what he's...
also be getting more money from YouTube. He's got
more from YouTube.
He's got quite a number of subscribers.
But I know that, and we talked about this before,
One of his
YouTube...
posts with 140,000 likes or something.
But YouTube has demonetized a lot of political shows. So if you got anything remotely political in a title or anything like that, quite often your content is demonetized and you won't get advertising from it. That happened.
Will they advertise on it?
I don't know whether they do advertise on it.
Because that's not bad either. If there's no ads, that's a win. If I don't get money, that's not that great. But the lack of ads from YouTube is great.
But that's definitely something that's happened to a lot of the politics. It's not that's affected all the a lot of the mainstream, I guess the mainstream media channels, they put their own advertising on and stuff like that, so they don't really care.
Yeah.
But it's the independent media that's really suffering from it. And I don't know, Dave Rubin's probably missing out on there, but he's got a very healthy Patreon.
Well, what do you reckon, Chad? So should we keep on rapping with the political speak and save douchebag filter to the end?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
don't
we
mind.
keep the flow? Yeah, let's try that. We'll see what our listeners think. Even though they never comment to let us know what they think, we'll just assume that they'll be happy with that.
Well, assume we got it right.
I only have one story this week.
I only have two.
It's very local. West Australian focused.
I thought it was going to be about your house.
No. We've
It's very
already covered
local
that.
to this room. I have bought you new chairs.
It's about Big Bag McGowan and him throwing out red herrings. In Saturday's West Australian newspaper, he had a rather favourable news article towards him in regards to the article is entitled, I should say, "Vow to End Excessive Public Servant Payouts." So this is when, CEOs of government bodies or whatever leave before their contract terms to stop them getting golden parachutes.
Okay.
Now, why was this in particular being reported in the newspaper? Well, let me tell you. Over a week ago, a certain gentleman named Paul Andrew stepped down after a mutual agreement. I use my inverted comment, comment.
Step
fingers,
down or be pushed.
Stepped down with mutual agreement with the government from his position as CEO of Lottery West. So Lottery West runs the Lotto gaming in Western Australia, and they donate a third of their revenue to public grants. And
Is it only
for the
a
community
third?
good. I believe so.
Wow.
How expensive is it to run a lottery?
Not very.
And their overheads can't be huge, surely. I suppose there's those lotto machines and all that kind of infrastructure, but
It's sort of a one-off cost,
a
really.
third?
I feel like a third is not much.
That's
Oh, hang on. How big was the golden parachute this guy got? Because
Yeah.
maybe the other third went there.
Well, basically, he stepped down from a $395,000 a year salary, and under public sector commission guidelines, in these circumstances, they get nearly a year's worth of salary. So, a payout of nearly $400,000.
wow.
Well,
But
that'll
what
stop
was
him having to work for a
more
while.
intriguing was that neither the government nor the public sector commission, which is responsible for good governance and transparency in public sector bodies, would comment as to the specific reason as to why Paul Andrews was stepping down,
Right.
which left a huge vacuum for supposition. And the supposition is that Paul Andrews was refusing to use Lottery West funds to fund Labor's election promises.
Right.
So
So he was
supposition is
taking a political position as the head of a public service department. I can see why that
So-
would get you fired.
So what is
well, the
Lottery
actual-
West the money that Lottery West give back to the government that isn't
No, Lottery West doesn't give money back to the government. Lottery West spends according to their charter. So, quoting Mike Nahan, Lottery West.
do you have to quote that guy? The most
What's a fair
annoying guy in
comment?
WA politics.
Hey, well, once again, he has fantastic ties. He's not that annoying.
Lottery West is not a cash cow to fund Labor's election promises. It is a community fund overseen by an independent board to allocate spending according to a strict criteria. So it's not meant to be an extension of the government of the day.
Yeah, it's not a slush fund.
No. So maybe Mark Barnett. Oops,
Mark
did I say
McGowan,
that?
yep.
Mark McGowan, because he's so different as a Labor leader from any Liberal leader, had his nose ruffled. This is supposition, though. There's been no specific reason.
But
as to why he
that's
stepped
so
down.
obviously. What was the name of the guy from the Lottery West? He's
Paul
done
Andrews.
nothing wrong because
Well, we don't know.
he's spending money according to the charter still. Or,
Well, no, that's supposition. We don't
Okay.
know as to the reason why. But it's curious that
It is
the West-
interesting supposition, though.
before this article came out in the West about Mark McGowan was going to come down hard on public sector body payouts for their CEOs, is that there's been significant pressure on his government to explain why Paul Andrews is leaving that position. And so he's throwing out a bit of a red herring to sort of divert the public's attention.
That's interesting. That's interesting.
I'm surprised the West Australian was being quite friendly to Mark McGowan. Maybe it's because he's shown the right shade of little L.
Well, if he's pissing off the Labor Party, then they probably would be.
Who?
To Mark McGowan. Sorry, yeah.
Was it, just taking the pressure off and say, good on you, Mark, for coming down on these golden parachutes.
Yeah, it does seem like
the real story is, why is he leaving? Why is it all a big secret? He's only 2 years into a 5-year contract.
That would seem to call for some investigative reporting. That's not something the West Australians particularly good at.
If you were in Paul Andrews' position, though, and you were following the charter and the government of the day was seeking to have you removed, wouldn't you fight it?
Well, if you're going to receive a year's pay when you're leaving, maybe you wouldn't.
Well, still short of the 3. That's
who needs that? Who needs that kind of hassle? I mean,
well, yeah,
really,
but the kind of person who goes to seek to manage a fund like that probably would, try and stand up for what's right.
Maybe. I don't know. I mean, if Lottery West is an organisation that's only giving a third of its income away, maybe it's not quite the institution you think it is.
Well, there's 2 ways you can look at it. If Paul Andrews does have something on the McGowan government that would make them look incompetent or corrupt or whatever, just doesn't look good, I'd find it strange that Mark McGowan would then come out criticising these sort of payouts. I thought he would like to keep it, quiet for a while, not antagonise an individual who may want to come out and sort of insinuate.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, I mean, but it also probably looks good because McGowan's been in the press lately because of the increases to levies, notably power bills. I think it was $170 a year for everyone, even if you're a retiree type of person. They're going to go up, and there are a lot of people saying, considering the state of the jobs in WA, this is not entirely fair, and hitting pensioners is not entirely fair. And I think it was all up about $400 more a year in bills and levies and stuff. So maybe making it look like the higher end of town would be taking a bit of a sacrifice as well. Probably helps him on that regard too.
Well, if it's a flat rate that they're being increased by, like if that's an average rate or something, then the higher end of town is not commensurately being hit at all. I mean, that's going to hit the lower end of town.
No, I mean cutting their golden parachute cords.
Oh, right. Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Maybe it makes that look not so that little bit of pill not so hard to swallow.
It might have better optics. Whether it's practically making much of a difference, who knows?
Oh, I don't think it's making much of a difference, but I think optically, it's just. I mean, it's going to be tough because the Labor government have to balance the budget. They promised at the election there were going to be no new taxes, and they've got a massive financial hole. So how are they going to fix that? They were talking about getting rid of something like 20% of public servants, which is just going to mean there's more unemployed people trying to find the jobs that don't exist.
You see the police are moving into this work to rule?
Yep.
So they can get there. And it's just for a 1% or a 1.5% pay rise. That feels like almost nothing, right? I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of police in the world, but a 1% pay rise for people like that, it's not calling for much.
I think you've got to pay police and judges
accordingly. You've got to pay them reasonably well.
Because if you don't...
Well, it's a hard job. As much as I don't like the police, it's a hard job.
Yeah, it's a hard job, and you don't want to be corrupt.
And yeah, the other thing is that a policeman's pay reflects the type of policeman you'll attract.
You'll attract, yeah.
Low paid, you're going to get the sort of people that just like handling guns.
Yeah.
Not the sort of police you want on the street.
I still think you get that. I don't think a high pay puts up
if you put more pay there, you'll get more applicants and you get more choice.
Yeah. There'll be a less percentage of people just want to hold
I mean, given the risk factor and danger police put themselves in a day-to-day situation, it's a sad state of affairs that they're not really remunerated to reflect that risk.
But
I agree.
So the police knocked back a flat rate raise of $1,000 a year, I think, is what the public servants got. They're all originally going for a percentage-based increase as well, and the McGowan government said we'll give you a flat rate, which was $1,000, and the police have said no. And now they're moving to this work to rule thing, which I've seen these happen before, where police start doing, very, very socially benign things like parking their cars in front of Multinovas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
with their sirens on because it's an emergency, Jason. That's why they're parked there.
Of course.
Issuing warnings rather than fines.
Yeah. And doing all the appropriate vehicular checks before they get into them to go out, which apparently that means it could take 45 minutes instead of the usual 5 or 10.
Well, I support any sort of safety measures.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of this work to rule style stuff. That's good.
Yeah, look, I have an issue with multinovas at the best of times. Partly because I get caught by them all the time.
Is it a financial issue with multinovas?
It's not so much anymore. I don't drive, but I still don't like them because you're not addressing. It's very much revenue raising, and we all know.
Yes.
You're not putting them on dangerous roads. You're not putting them on dangerous curves. You're not putting signs up in front of them say, "Hey, this is a dangerous stretch of road. Also, there's a multi-nova if you don't slow down."
And if you haven't noticed, some of those fixed position cameras, one of them in particular that I got caught out by is specifically in a position where someone might just speed up a little bit, just to get around to merge into traffic properly or something like that, and bang, you get.
The thing about the fixed points that pisses me off is they're on the freeway, on large, clear open straights. They're not on dangerous sections of road at all. Those are purely for revenue raising. But, we're probably going to have to get more of that because the state is desperately trying to raise revenue. So
yeah, and they're a cheap way.
I also find them offensive in that it doesn't reward overall good driving. So you could 90% of the time be obeying the speed limit all the time, meticulously, and for a moment's distraction, you slightly went over the speed limit and you were just unlucky to be in the wrong spot. There's no checking of actually you're always driving well. This was just a minor infraction. We're not going to fine you. No, you get treated the same as the worst offenders.
Yep.
Just moving on to some remuneration for the high end of town, but slightly different in a slightly different way. This is a bit of old news, but I just came across it. Andrew Robb, the former trade minister, has taken an $880,000 job as a consultancy with a Chinese billionaire.
It's a bargain getting Andrew Robb for $880,000 a year.
It's a bargain for us.
Oh.
Getting him out of government was well worth it.
That's worth it.
Yeah. I mean, it's not quite the same end, but the idea of, because he's been investigated and he's been found that he's not breaching any kind of code of conduct or anything like that. It's perfectly fine.
Where was the Chinese billionaire offering Tony Abbott gigs?
Oh, yeah.
That would have been nice.
The thing about being offered jobs like that from billionaires is you need to have good relations with people that they can annex and use. And Tony doesn't have that.
Yeah. And of course, the other big problem is that if these are the kind of jobs that are awaiting a minister after any minister with a decent portfolio after they leave government, they might be inclined to look favourably on certain sort of policies and things that may...
Indeed.
Yeah. It's a bit of an issue, but currently there's no rules stopping it or even limiting it, apparently. So people can pretty much walk out of their portfolio and go and take a job, a very high-paying job with just about anyone.
The States has a couple of years before you're allowed to become a lobbyist, doesn't it?
Whether he's a consultant, so, I mean...
Basically the same thing.
Yeah, but... Maybe it's not. I mean, he walked straight at it. He's straight into that job, so there certainly wasn't any limitation. The hassle is, though,
if you're gonna put a stoppage in place on people who were former ministers taking jobs elsewhere, you're gonna have to pay them more because they're being denied the ability to work. Like, I don't know how you get around.
Yeah, no, I understand that, and I've got no problem with that. I mean, ministers and that being the pay, you could quite happily put it. It wouldn't actually cost us much to pay them more, if you know what I mean. That is actually not an expensive thing. It looks bad optically because then everyone complains about, I think recently there was the ministers, was it just from one of the states, got a 13% pay rise, but also a tax cut on the other end. So like a 17% tax cut on the other side.
Oh, wow.
So they essentially got, when they balance it out, a massive pay rise. And yeah, people are concerned about that. Mainly when you're passing these kinds of things while also implementing austerity measures at every other level.
Yeah, it would be unpopular.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just this thing came up on my radar. It's a bit of a concern, especially when you know that China's, and there's no problem with China moving in and investing in our country, but we have to decide who we want for designing our policy and what and where these effects.
Well, that's a different issue. I mean, if you look at a map of people who allow foreign donations to political parties globally, there are very few countries that will light up green saying it's okay. We're one of them. And I think that's the actual issue. It should be that political donations from external entities probably not cool.
Yeah. No. Well, in the US, they have to declare it, and also there's all sorts of rules around it. I noticed in Australia, because I was looking through the list of political donations, I expected it, unless there's obviously ways that they can donate that they don't declare it. It was usually the largest single donations were usually around $200,000 or $300,000, which is a lot of money, but that's to a political party as a whole. I was looking at it going, this doesn't seem particularly bad, and it was funny because you get Liberal Party had a lot of business interest, and you have the Labor Party who have some business interest. Notably, Woodside was donating to both at about the same level, $130,000 each, and of course the Labor Party also has labour unions and things like that donating to them. And then you've got the poor old Greens. So it went from the top 10 donations for Liberal and Labor, each over the $100,000, that kind of thing. And you go down to Greens, it's all individual rich people, obviously, donating $30,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's a much different scale. But, yeah, I mean, it wasn't something that I was immediately going, wow, that's seriously concerning. But I don't know if there's other ways that the money can be donated to the political parties without it actually having to be declared in that way.
It's tough. See, I don't really believe political donations are cool at all.
I think public funding should just be...
Yeah, I don't think it's that a rich person should be able to buy more democracy than a poor person.
That would be the easiest way to solve the issue.
But the hassle with public funding is then I would have to be okay with people like Pauline Hanson and
getting matching funds and stuff.
Getting matching funds. And I'm not necessarily against that. I think it's probably fair, but morally it offends me.
I think the other problem with political donations is it gives leverage to those major parties to keep other candidates out, because basically they've got more power to spend on advertising.
And they're not going to want to pass legislation to remove it either, because they're currently in control.
Mm.
So that's a tough one. I mean, I guess if you were one of the members of the crossbench, you could make it a requirement for us to get your vote. Yeah, sure, we'll support you if you're willing to reform political donations. Oh, you're not? Oh, well.
Well, I mean, it's a big move that's coming forward in the States. I mean, one of the major platforms of Bernie Sanders, and that was getting large
under
political donations out of...
Is he?
Is he really?
Bernie and his wife, yeah.
Oh, is this the... was it some kind of FBI
I saw it this morning. Yeah, their investigation. I think it was bank fraud or something.
That's...
I'm totally I could be making that up.
It's old news that has been kind of thrown out there by Bernie critics, but it's been something that's been brought up a couple of... even it was during the primary process it got brought up. It's pretty much nothing.
Oh, look, I mean, much like the investigations of Donald Trump for collusion with Russia and Hillary Clinton for maybe releasing state secrets when she was the Secretary of State, I'm all for it. If someone has serious allegations against them, you should investigate those. That is the job of the FBI.
Absolutely.
Down with that.
But yeah, that one's been around for a while. I don't think it was anything anyone's particularly worried about.
Well, I don't know. Like I said, I just saw it on the news this morning.
But one of their major platforms is getting money. And I know, and people always raise that question. They say, well, if you get corporate money out of politics, should we get labour union money? I think, yeah, by all means.
And individuals.
Knock it out. Well, individuals... It's a bit tough, but that's what I mean. That's why
Gina Reinhardt can make a donation that'll easily eclipse you.
But that's why public funding and just excluding all donations is the easiest way to go, obviously. But yeah, it's a major platform there. You've got other nations that I think some of your more socialistic kind of European nations that actually just have plain public funding.
Or you just set a limit of what the donation is. So you say, okay, the top amount an individual company can donate is 500.
Well, technically they have that in the US as well, but there's ways around it.
Yeah.
There's too many ways around it.
You can always set the cap very low, though. I don't know, man. I just think public funding is easier, though.
Yeah, cheaper in the long run.
Cheaper in the long run. And if you need to, just legislate that television stations have to allow.
But you know why these don't get forward, especially in the States, why that kind of policy doesn't get pushed forward is because where all that money is spent is on media. No media is going to put forward the idea of, hey, let's just publicly fund so everything's cheap and quite reasonably priced. They like the fact that when Hillary Clinton raised $1 billion, she essentially spent almost all that $1 billion on media.
Well, you also get the situation there where you have the equivalent of super PACs, who then gather money and advertise on behalf of a party, but not necessarily representing
at all. We're not in any way.
We're not in any way related. We're just saying.
Yeah.
And you see this in Australia as well. It happens with the unions putting stuff forwards, and it happens with big companies putting stuff forwards, particularly when they're fighting mining taxes. They all unify together and start running campaigns. So it definitely happens.
And one reason why I don't mind if unions are excluded from donating as well, but there's one natural advantage that you can't deny unions, and if they will have an organised body of actual people. If they can motivate those people to assist in a political campaign, by all means. If a corporation can do that as well, by paying people, maybe
it's mandatory.
Then maybe that's probably fine as well. If you can organise an actual bunch of people to actually go and do these things, then that's fine.
What if they just make it like a corporate team building day? We're going to race around Perth, handing out flyers, and the first team to get through it gets to keep their jobs.
Exactly.
My two stories are both Middle East related, so I don't know. Do you have anything that segues from jokes about corporations, Frank? Or Jason, for that matter.
No.
I'll be hoping this is a good story.
Oh dear.
Oh dear. Well, I've got two. So the first one I want to talk about is about the conflict in Syria, the ongoing conflict in Syria, I should say. This was probably the most interesting sort of simmering in the background story for me, just checking in to see how close to Armageddon we really were. So really early in the week, I think it would have been Sunday stateside and Monday our time, the Americans shot down a Syrian pilot flying a Russian-made Su-22 jet operating in Syrian airspace. It was considered an act of aggression by Russia and Syria, and the response from the Russians was that any aircraft, including planes and drones, belonging to the international coalition led by the Americans, operating west of the Euphrates River, will be targeted by air and ground Russian forces and treated as hostile. That's pretty concerning. So essentially any American forces operating in the sky, or American allied, our own government responded by immediately grounding any planes that would be operating in Syrian airspace.
We can't afford to replace our planes.
We got 6 of those. We only got 6 there. We can barely keep them in the sky, Jason. We definitely can't afford to replace those. So we grounded ours. The British and the Americans said basically that they won't be bullied like that, and then
come at me, bro.
Then promptly,
is that what they were saying?
Promptly, as far as I'm aware, ceased operations. But they did say publicly, "Hey, you can't talk to us like that. We're just going. Wow, we need repairs." So
if you can imagine this translated to a nightclub scene, 2 guys chesting up.
Yeah. And the Russians also said they were going to be terminating the hotline they had between the Russians and Americans for coordinating strikes. Thankfully, they've regressed on that a little bit. So later in the week, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, when the Russians went ahead with a cruise missile strike against the installation run by ISIS, having ammunition and communications equipment, they called ahead to tell the Americans what their target was. Which was nice, as the missiles slammed into the ground and killed a bunch of people, probably. Elsewhere in Syria this week...
Fortunately, the US weren't screening their calls going, it's fucking Russia again.
Oh, God. It's Putin. Elsewhere in Syria this week, ISIS forces who are sort of losing their grip on what remains of Mosul. They've got the west end of the city, and they estimate something like 500 snipers operating in there. They demolished one of the oldest standing mosques in Syria. 840-something years old. I can't do the math on the top of my head right now, but it was consecrated in 1172. Someone else can do the math.
It's old.
They blew it up. This happened to also be the exact same mosque where Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi declared the caliphate, which kicked off ISIS. So
why are they blowing up mosques? This seems a little bit...
Well, to be fair, most terrorist operations happen in the Middle East, blowing up Muslims, blowing up people of that faith, blowing up. Like, why wouldn't they target mosques?
They blew it up as a terrorist act, or did they demolish it as a fuck you?
They're losing Mosul, yeah. As a fuck you, yeah.
Right, okay.
It seems to be a fuck you history. Take that. Which I think is a dick move. I mean, it's a dick move every time they blow something up. But anyways, the other interesting news from last week itself was that al-Baghdadi was believed by the Russians, very strongly believed, that he was taken out by one of their cruise missile strikes. It's very hard to say because no one's seen him in 3 years. But all of their evidence and investigations on the ground indicate that he is now dead. So I guess they're getting some traction. Maybe... I'm wondering what Donald Trump's going to do here, you know? I'm terrified of Trump and how he reacts in situations like this.
He's upped the drone strike counts. It's been an order of magnitude more in drone strikes since his inauguration.
I don't think he's necessarily up the count. What Barack Obama used to like to personally greenlight each individual strike, so they were slow because they had to go before the president. Trump's just told his commanders, you guys can do whatever the fuck you think is appropriate, which is how this Syrian jet got
you're
shot
right.
down
He may not
place.
specifically have said to up it, but
he's
right.
I think I'm not like it's gone up, but I think largely because there's less oversight.
Yeah, that's quite possible.
You guys, I trust you guys to do your jobs.
Let's not read any kind of anything too overt into this. It's maybe just simply pure incompetence.
Yeah, well, no, I think it's when you're in the military,
managerial,
and this hardware, right? These missiles, they've got shelf lives, Jason. If we don't shoot them, they're wasted. So we may as well drone strike the fuck out of Iraq.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I don't like drones either. just the whole concept of like machines targeting humans, taking that sort of human decision out.
Yeah.
It just seems kind of distasteful. And you can imagine once other nations have this technology, the Americans aren't going to be cool with drone strikes being done in their own land, in their own airspace. It's just cool because they're the ones that have it at
remember
the
seeing
moment.
there was an interesting interview with someone talking specifically about drone strikes, and they were saying exactly that. It's like America set the ground rules, and apparently anything goes at the moment with drones. And they're not going to enjoy that. And if once this action gets repeated back onto them, then that's where the next brush war could sort of start.
Yeah.
So because China's got
North
drones.
Korea has drones. I saw a story this week about a North Korean drone that was flying over to take photos of Seoul and then was turning back to return to North Korea, crashed. So the South Koreans have recovered a North Korean drone, which is interesting. I mean, it's nice that the things they're firing at
Are
Seoul
crashing.
are not
It's nice they're
ordnance.
crashing.
It's just they're taking photos.
Yeah.
It's the tourist, basically. Let's hope the South Koreans don't beat its senseless and return it in a coma. So my other story... You missed my Otto joke then, by the way.
Otto.
My other story is about Qatar.
Oh, I was hoping this was the other one. Yeah.
So this one is really fucked up. So after 2 weeks of pretty crippling sanctions by 3 of their former major trading partners,
This is a country that needs almost everything.
almost
flown
everything
in
has to
or
get flown
something.
in. Yeah. Saudi Arabia, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, has submitted a list of 13 demands on Qatar in order to resume normal relations. Now, while officially these sanctions were put in place because of the Qatari sponsoring of terrorist groups, most of these demands, interestingly, don't really relate so much to terrorism.
More to Iran.
More to Iran, and more interestingly, to shutting down Al Jazeera. It's about influence.
Yeah.
Specifically, Saudi Arabia wanting Qatar to be a puppet state that just does what they're told. So I've got the full list of demands here. Number 1, which you rightly spoiled, curb diplomatic ties with Iran and close your embassies there.
Stop being friendly with other people.
Close your embassies as well. Like, just don't even talk to them.
We don't agree with their interpretation of our imaginary friend.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Number 2, sever ties with the terrorist organizations known as the Muslim Brotherhood, who operate in Saudi Arabia as opposed to the government. IS, Al-Qaeda.
And the Muslim Brotherhood's not
And
listed
Hezbollah.
as a terrorist organization.
Oh, by Saudi Arabia they are.
By Saudi Arabia they are, but
Well,
they were a
and they're in the-
legitimately elected party in Egypt for a while. For a brief
I'm hearing
while.
you.
For a brief.
And Hezbollah, which are a legitimately elected party in Palestine.
Yeah.
Number 3, shut down Al Jazeera.
Palahu?
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, Western Israel. Number 3, shut down Al Jazeera. Number 4, shut down all other state-funded news outlets, including Arabi 21, Rasad, Al Arabi, Al Jahid, and Middle East Eye. So they really don't want them having any influence over the people of the Middle East and reporting news. Number 5, immediately terminate the Turkish military presence in Qatar and end any future joint operations with Turkey.
Now, didn't I hear that Turkey actually, in response to that, stationed more aircraft there? They flew more aircraft down to Qatar or something.
I mean,
like that?
as much as I'm not a fan of Erdogan, he doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would respond well to threats like that.
It's like, yeah, come at me, bro. It would
Yeah.
be very... I think I remember hearing something like that. It was something on Twitter where one of the wartime reporters, Middle East journalist, was saying Turkey has just designated another squadron to Qatar or something like that.
Number 6, stop all means of private funding of terrorist organizations designated by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, or the USA. So basically anyone that these 4 countries
See,
doesn't
this
like.
kind of demand is particularly galling, right?
Especially
'cause
when Saudi
Saudi-
Arabia doesn't stop personal funding.
Saudi Arabia is the one
terrorist organizations.
funding terrorist organizations to an order. It's probably a lot more than I don't know, but probably a lot more
bullshit.
than Qatar.
It's bullshit. Number 7, hand over terrorist figures. They didn't list them. They didn't publicly list who these people were. Terrorist figures wanted by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia who are currently seeking refuge in Qatar.
So it's any political enemy.
Yeah,
has to
political
have-
dissidents.
Yeah.
We want them back. Number 8, end interference in the affairs of sovereign nations, largely being Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain. Stop granting their citizenship in your nation or refugee status if they're wanted by these nations. Number 9, stop all communications with political oppositions in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain. Number 10, pay reparations for the loss of life and financial losses incurred by your foreign policies.
Wow.
There's no fucking way you're going to sign on to this because it's ridiculous. Number 11, consent to monthly audits by Saudi Arabia for the duration of the first year to ensure compliance, quarterly for the second year, and then annually for the next 10 years. Number 12, align economically, politically, militarily, and socially with Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain.
Whoa. Not Egypt?
No. Basically, puppet state, puppet state, puppet state. And number 13, do all of the above within 10 days or this offer becomes void.
Wow.
It's pretty hard to do that within 10 days.
Yeah. That's interesting because when the Arab Spring kicked off and there was some significant action in Qatar as well. Saudi Arabia helped them by sending troops into Qatar.
Yeah. Because they don't want a neighbour to be successfully overthrown.
I was kind of assuming Qatar was already puppet state status, but apparently they've been kicking shit around without people noticing.
Yeah, they're not exactly the best of neighbours. Like in 2014, I think it was, Saudi Arabia had a similar list of demands that Qatar.
And of course, that other thing is Al Jazeera is a very popular and quite a successful media presence, and it very much. I mean, I use Al Jazeera for some news.
I do too.
But obviously it's very much pro-Qatari sort of government. So, and it is a little bit critical of Saudi Arabia now then.
Yeah. So look, like I said, almost none of that was terrorist related, unless you assume that the organisation Saudi Arabia and the people Saudi Arabia want, who are in Qatar, are legitimate terrorists and not just dissidents who disagree with a brutal theocracy. So
some of the Middle East correspondents that I follow have commented on this, but they're a little bit dumbfounded as to what this is actually going to mean. They're basically saying, this looks interesting.
Well, could it be, given that Trump had a rather successful visit to Saudi Arabia...
and sold them a lot of guns.
Has emboldened Saudi Arabia to think they've gotten the green light from America to do as you please in the region?
They may well have gotten the green light, because apparently he didn't realise that America had bases in Qatar.
Interestingly, the US Foreign Department has come out and called for cool heads to prevail recently and suggested that softer conditions for Qatar would be a good idea. Now, as Jason's already given away with a spoiler, the US does maintain a rather large and rather strategically important base in Qatar, so a war in that area would not be great for them. Also, the other interesting piece of news is that Qatar has responded to Saudi Arabia and said that the economic sanctions currently in place have to be lifted before we'll even consider negotiations. Which I will translate for you as, fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. I've been listening to a bit of Rage, which is good.
That is crazy.
Oh, look, I mean, I'm always worried that the whole American-Russian conflict in Syria might kick something off. This could equally kick something off in a serious way. I mean, Saudi Arabia are fucking around in other nations as it is.
Yeah, Yemen for one.
But this would be on their doorstep. And there would be other nations in the area, which are strange bedfellows. I can't imagine both Turkey and Iran getting involved on the same side of an argument, but it looks like they might.
Yeah, I wouldn't be interested if Qatar says...
And America would just be like, oh, fuck's sake.
Fuck you, Iran's our new friend.
Yeah.
So aside from having an American airbase in their country, does Qatar have any local friends that might...
It's a big naval base, actually. It's the base of their major...
The fleet's based out of it, yeah.
Basically.
I thought Qatar was landlocked.
No, Qatar's a very small coastal nation.
Okay. So do they have any proxy states that might back them in a...
Not in their immediate vicinity.
With Saudi Arabia, besides...
Well, Iran is... I mean, the narrowing of the Gulf is right there at Qatar as well, I think.
Yeah.
And Iran's not very far away.
But the Iranians would be hard-pressed to... It would depend if the Americans got involved.
Yeah.
Because flying over that particular airspace... If the Americans didn't want you doing that, you wouldn't be doing that.
Well, they've shot down airliners before.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, you just...
just go, what?
Well, by virtue of the fact that the American naval base being there, surely no country's going to try and do something while Americans
the other thing to bear in mind is that
we would assume that,
the Saudi royal family aren't particularly well liked.
They got a new crown prince as well.
Yeah, they got rid of one.
But apparently the guy they brought in is the guy that's really pushing all this shit against Qatar. he's the militant voice within the Al Saud family. So
is the Qatari transport, is that called Air Qatar?
No, is it Etihad?
I just wish it was called Air Qatar.
Oh dear.
I wanted to make that joke and I couldn't work out how to fit it in, so I just had to shoehorn it. And I also wanted to make my regular Qatar Hero joke, but I couldn't work that one in.
Qatar Hero worked a lot better.
Yeah. Look, so that could be interesting.
Flashpoint Middle East for a change.
Yeah. And even, to some extent, I imagine Syria would be pretty cool with anyone who doesn't like Saudi Arabia at this point too.
Well, which part of Syria? I mean, there's so many different factions. I'm pretty sure everyone's got some kind of interest on either side of this somewhere along the line. There's factions that are backed by just about every other Middle East sort of nation at the moment. So.
But look, I'm curious to see how Trump handles this, because you can't really have your naval base in the vicinity being threatened, because you need that. And then Saudi Arabia, you're very good friends, and you don't really want to get involved.
Yeah, because Saudi Arabia is not going to want to piss America off at all anyway, because they still get all their munitions from them. So they can't carry on a war.
It's quid pro quo, because that's American jobs. So
and,
the Americans
they've just got a bunch of it though. They've bought a stockpile. Yeah. So even if they can't get any more for a little while, maybe they'll be alright for a while. 6 months, 12 months.
Well, it depends on how much they're bombing Yemen at the time as well.
Well, the major donors to the Republicans, who are the weapons manufacturers, would not be pleased if the contracts with Saudi Arabia were cancelled.
Yeah, look, so two very interesting developments over this week in the Middle East, which is why that's all I've brought in way of stories.
I didn't prepare a story about this, but it's worth mentioning that a couple of days ago, finally, the Republicans revealed their very secretive Senate bill for repealing Obamacare. And as you'd imagine, people are not happy. It's been accused of being purely, it's not a new implementation of healthcare. It's just a massive tax cut for the rich.
Yeah.
So this is not a repeal and replace. This is just repeal.
Repeal and tax cut.
Repeal and tax cut, yeah.
I just saw a news article here that apparently 5 Republican senators have suggested they're not going to support the bill, and the Republicans only have a 58-42, is it? The 52-48 majority.
They don't have to flip too many, yeah.
No.
They only have to lose 2.
But interestingly enough, the even Donald Trump and Paul Ryan couldn't get the Republicans to agree on a healthcare bill. And so I can't imagine that anyone else who's not got the backing of the head of the free world. It seems like an uphill battle to get everyone on the same page. So, best of luck to him.
Donald Trump, leader of the free world.
It's funny when you have to say that.
I subscribe. I like Harry Shearer. I listen to his podcast every week. He's maintained it to this point. He cannot say President Trump without laughing when he says it. He has to say it nearly every show, and he cannot say it without laughing. President Trump.
It is ridiculous, isn't it? Yeah. Considering the many a cartoon has sort of foretold as a lampoon of a President Trump, and now we're here, and it's happened.
The other interesting thing that President Trump did this week was he admitted that he does not have audio tapes of his meetings with James Comey.
No, but in every other way, he's telling the truth, except for that bit. He lied about that bit. He lied about that bit because it then meant that Comey had to be honest about how honest Trump was being. That's why it's twisted logic. It's
pretty funny, hey?
Yeah.
He's like, I got tapes.
I haven't. No, I haven't. But I'm not lying about all the other stuff.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be in Donald Trump's best interest to have any audio of any of his meetings.
Well, it depends. If he actually legitimately did have tapes that he has now destroyed, that's very bad too, because he's not allowed to do that. It's destruction of public property.
Yeah, well, Trump's lying for Trump is his core brand proposition, which
he's still very popular. His popularity amongst his core constituency is not affected by any of this.
Oh, really? The core constituents that did not waver when the pussy grabbing audio came out, did not waver when just about anything he did came out.
People didn't vote for Trump for rhyme or reason. That's the thing. So
some did.
Some were voting for his pro pussy grabbing policies.
No, you can look back at we don't have to relitigate it, but you can look back and he was actively saying that America's fucked and it needs to be made better.
What came
and
out of his
his
mouth?
opposition was saying America's fine. It's fine. And there was a number of people that are going, it's not fine, and only one person is saying they're going to make it better.
Yeah.
But any reasonable person can, on the one hand, agree with some of the sentiments that were coming out of his mouth. But a reasonable person who actually analysed Donald Trump as an individual would know this is not the person to lead us to salvation.
You're talking about people maybe like us, or maybe not quite as politically interested as we
sat in red leather Chesterfields.
Yeah, that's right. But like average people who just tune in for the election every now and then, and they don't have that depth of knowledge. You're going like, well, here's one guy. They take the superficial, and you can't blame them for it. You know, they're not.
It's on the Democratic campaign for not disarming that particular time bomb.
Exactly. They lost the election.
If he was going, it's fucked, and people are listening, and they're going, it's not that fucked, and then people are still listening to Trump, they should be like, you know what, it is. But do you trust him to make it better, or do you trust?
It's.
Exactly. Team here.
So some people, I think they were voting rationally because they were getting two messages, and only one agreed with their perspective, where they're going, things are shit and they need to be made better. And Trump was the only one that was addressing that perspective.
It's a shame his policy wasn't unfuck America rather than make America great again. Just unfuck it.
Well, so we'll step over to England, where someone also had the message of trying to make a country better again. Jeremy Corbyn.
Is this at Glastonbury?
Yeah. He popped up at Glastonbury and did a 10-minute speech.
To people chanting for his name.
Which, when it closed out, people were chanting his name. So I don't know how many people were at that main stage, but I mean, the festival attracts 135,000 people.
A few.
A fair few. And that looked like it was the main stage, and it was pretty full. And he got a rousing sort of ovation out of it. And I've watched a couple of videos around it with some very bitter people that criticising the fact that he went to Glastonbury, but apparently Glastonbury's got a bit of a history of politics. People going there for political speeches and things like that. So
Theresa May didn't take the opportunity?
No. Could you imagine Theresa May turning up there? And
she's just getting terrible advice from someone too.
No, I don't think she has the capacity to deal with that kind of shit.
No, but like when the Tower fires, when they rushed her away from dealing with the victims and got into a car, it's not safe. The fucking Queen was there. How is it not safe if the Queen is meeting with these people? And then the optics later on, when there was the guy that pulled the van into some Muslims and then started fucking around, like not stabbing. And then there were the Imam was defending, and then she went to meet those people. It's like, as much as I like what you're doing, it's really sending the wrong message to the right now. They're seeing you not caring about
that's right
British people,
you're just pissing everyone off.
Like, it's oh my god, someone's giving you the worst advice ever. I'm having a political meltdown on your behalf.
Well, someone's giving her direct opposition in Maidenhead good advice. Lord Buckethead also turned up at Glastonbury and introduced a few acts. He's been getting a lot of media attention. He got flown over to John Oliver's show. Yeah. He's just been popping up everywhere. And I remember I sort of, because I was watching the geek that I was, and at the time I had available to me, I was watching the Maidenhead results come in when they went up there, and I saw Lord Buckethead and went, who the hell is this joker? And looked him up on Twitter, and he had 600 followers when I started following him. He's now got 115,000. It's just like,
I mean, sitting prime ministers have lost their seats before. John Howard famously lost his to Maxine McCune here. Yeah. Could you imagine losing your seat to Lord Buckethead?
I think he'll get more votes. He got 238 votes or something this time around. I think there's a chance he could get more next time he stands.
Yeah.
It'd be very interesting. And another, just a brief bit of news.
I like the photos of her next to Lord Buckethead as well.
And Elmo on the other end.
It's just so funny. Like, I'm a serious politician and there's fucking Elmo. Yeah.
It's good. It's good. And one other brief bit of news. The Grenfell Tower disaster. There's been investigations coming in after that because a lot of people noticed that, hey, there's a lot of other buildings that have a very similar cladding to the Grenfell Tower, and the cladding was sort of identified as something that really lit up quite well. And it turns out 34 tower blocks have been found to have very similar cladding, and some number, I don't think all of them, but some number of these are suddenly being evacuated. These people cannot.
Why is it not 100%?
I'm not sure. That I couldn't get the number of how many were being evacuated from this report. Right. They were just saying they're like some tower blocks have been evacuated. So not all of them have been, but some of them have been found to have similar cladding. So immediately they're talking about it's going to cost hundreds of millions of pounds to start fixing this stuff. So
better than lives.
Well,
It's
it was funny
only
because they're
money.
interviewing some of the people that are being evacuated, and you get those stodgy ones that are going, "Oh, I think they're just overcompensating here at the moment. I shouldn't have to leave my house." And I'm like, dude, come on. We just saw a building go up in flames.
We saw a mother.
People are going to overcompensate.
We saw a mother throw her 4-year-old from a 5th-story window, and then she was gone in a flash of fire.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's okay to evacuate your home under those circumstances. That would not be good.
That's all I've got.
Oh well.
It's a
So
dark note to end
Oh,
on.
no, we're going to do a bit of douchebag.
Douchebag. Yeah.
Oh, right, my bad.
I have got one small bit of douchebag news. I've discovered another podcast, the Chapo Trap House, and it's a bunch of American writers, comedians, lefties, dirtbag left they call themselves. It's just a fantastic podcast where they just rip into politicians of all stripes, left, right. They get stuck into them, and they're pretty entertaining. They're well worth checking out. One of my favourite things when I discover these new podcasts, especially when they're politically aligned, is to go back and watch to go back and listen to the podcast from before the Trump election,
Right.
and then the one after. it's really interesting because before that they're all down. Yeah, it's going to be Hillary, and they weren't happy because they didn't like Hillary, but at least it wasn't Trump. Blah blah blah. And the one after that, they're going, "Oh my god, things are so much worse."
Yeah.
But then, as a complete difference, they were big Jeremy Corbyn fans, and they did a show before the British election where they were like, it's just going to be a fucking romp in and the Tories are going to fucking sweep them out, blah, blah, blah. And then they were getting drunk in the next one, and they were just fucking having a party as the podcast is going. It was great. Anyway, well, we're checking out if you got the time.
Yeah,
what's
right.
it called? The Chapo Trap.
Chapo Trap House.
Okay.
A lot of swearing. It's a bit blue.
There's some swearing on our show.
There's a lot. Yeah, we don't compare remotely.
Fuck Jason.
Fuck you! I won't do what you tell me.
I've been continuing my journey of watching the American version of House of Cards, and I'm just going to sum it up. My experience so far is Frank Underwood is pure evil.
Where are you up to?
I'm up to he's trying to
No, it's
wank.
just season-wise.
Oh, season 1 still episode 13.
Oh, he's not half as evil
Yeah.
as he's going to get. Well, you are in for a
He,
treat.
he is currently the Diet Coke of evil.
Wow, shit gets dark.
Okay. I actually almost bailed on the series after what happens with Peter Russo. So I'm like, I can't watch this show anymore, but I got lured back in. But I was like going, oh.
I'm rewatching Breaking Bad.
Wow,
And-
you went back for seconds?
Yeah, I like it. But there's one episode that I remember watching that I could not watch again, and that was the one where where
Jesse's
Walter
girlfriend?
White, Jesse's girlfriend, chokes to death. And I went, that's when you know that Walter White has
No redeeming qualities.
Yeah,
in
that's
that.
it. He's done. He's bad. And that was just hard to watch as well. The first time around, I couldn't watch it the second time around. I had to skip that one out.
I was actually...
So, look at that. First rounds were hard to watch. Second time around, I kind of empathise Walter. Jesus, Jason.
I
can
happened
watch
to be
Six Time.
thinking about Breaking Bad the other day, and it reminded me of. I was thinking about why I can't watch that show anymore. And the scene that popped into mind was the ATM scene, which I found particularly disturbing.
Yeah, that's right. The guy gets his head crushed by his junkie girlfriend who just like, fuck you, tips it down and then goes off and gets high.
Yeah,
Oh, that was terrible.
it shows
They get some seriously fucked up actors to be junkies in that show.
Yeah.
Like they're believable.
Yeah.
Maybe it's like, character acting.
It could be. Could be.
On another note,
There's a new season of Orange is the New Black out as well. I haven't watched that yet, but I'm very excited by this. I love that show.
Okay.
I was excited to see
I
The
stopped watching
Handmaid's
that after the first season. I
Tale
think.
is coming on to free to air, so
Oh, it is,
I'll
is
be
it?
watching that.
That actually gets the Orange is the New Black gets better by about third season because they cut Jason Biggs and
Good.
all
Do
that
they?
crap. Yeah.
He was annoying as fuck.
He was the main
No,
reason.
that's why I'm like, because you're like, stop watching that first season. I'm like, is it Jason Biggs? Is that one of the things that annoys
also
you?
the main character in it.
Oh no, she's completely irredeemable. I hate Piper.
Okay, good, because I didn't like her either.
No,
The
yeah,
rest of the cast is pretty good.
yeah,
but-
she continues to be completely irredeemable as a person, but it's fine. You kind of accept that.
Okay.
In prison, some people get changed by prison.
That's
Other people were like that all along.
So when you say she's irredeemable, is that by the virtue of fact you can't stand her is a good quality of the show? Is it intended to be that way, or is she just?
I don't know.
annoying you?
Maybe it's intended to be that
Hey,
way.
did she get out of jail? Because she's only meant to be in there for what, a month, a year, or
She's-
8 months
she-
or a year or something like that?
She's still in jail.
Okay, so
Where I'm up
something
to.
else happens, obviously. Right, okay. Because it's gone for more seasons than she was sentenced for.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah. Okay. So spoilers, we won't say anything more.
I'm not going to say any more. Yeah.
Maybe I might get back into it because
you said you couldn't get past the first season. I couldn't get past the first episode because of Jason Biggs.
Yeah, look, he doesn't stick around.
Okay. But it takes 3 seasons to get rid of him?
2 seasons. He's in it for season 1, season 2, and then they cut him by the 3rd season. And the show is much better off for it.
Yeah. Because it wasn't a terrible show. I must admit, it wasn't like I went, oh, I'm never going to watch that again. Just the season finished, and I never got around to checking in again.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I like it more than House of Cards.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
House of Cards, and this is when House of Cards was good.
Right.
Not that it's not good. It's just not as great.
Because I did like that first season of House and Cards, but then it just, I don't know. Some people, it's gotten cartoonish in the later seasons, and that has its own kind of draw to it, I guess.
You say cartoonish, and then Trump gets elected.
Oh dear.
So is life imitating art, or is art imitating life?
So the final thing worth mentioning is when we're not.
Have you guys watched the trailer for the Orville? Have I shown you that? The Seth. What's the guy from Family Guy? MacFarlane. Seth MacFarlane's Star Trek-esque show he's got coming out.
No.
It's fucking awesome. It looks better than the new Star Trek.
Oh, wow.
Is it a serious or is it a piss take?
It's both.
All right, I'll have to check it out.
It's a serious show that has elements of comedy to it.
The Orville.
But the trailer looks amazing. The Star Trek trailer is pretty good too. The Orville, yeah. But it's out in September, whereas Star Trek's out later.
Is it a series or a film?
Series.
Oh, okay.
And it is it's associated with a large number of ex-Star Trek folk. So it's, I think Jonathan Frakes is directing a couple episodes. Robert Duncan McNeil, Tom Barris is directing some. It's got people like ex-actors from Star Trek.
I'm not sure that really draws me in. I always...
Oh no, but it's interesting in that they don't have anything to do with the new Star Trek. They don't want it's almost like they don't want anything to do with the new Star Trek. So they've got their own thing now.
Sound like a bunch of MRA guys that are complaining about the fact there's too many women on that other show.
Yeah, I saw that on Too Many Women on Star Trek. The hassle I had, the Star Trek trailer was good, but the hassle I've got is it's yet another weird change to the way Klingons look to try and incorporate. Really? Did you have to do that? Because you've done it twice and it was hard to explain. Then you got one in the fucking middle and they look, Some of
the comments around that, I remember seeing some Reddit forum or something, and they're just going, what the fuck? I mean, really? Yeah. What the fuck?
Like, do you have to? I get that you have to have like a modern interpretation.
We've accepted that this is what Klingons look like. Why fuck with that now?
Yeah.
It's
like really?
Because we want them to look more badass.
Yeah, which is fine. But, yeah. Some of the criticisms were justified. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. The Klingon one particularly.
Well, on that note, I think it's a good time then because I'm dying to see this trailer. So
yeah, let's watch it.
I've been Franco.
I've been Jason.
I am still Dean.